Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Sequel Q&A. My name's Doug. So the next sequel that we're going to be covering is one that I remember seeing and enjoying and seeing in the movie theater. Nutty Professor II, The Klumps. Who doesn't love the Klumps from the first one? So Eddie said, let's give them more Klumps. And that's what we got. Some new Klumps, some old Klumps. Lots of Klumps. And for it, I chatted with Actress, who had a small role in this movie, but a ton of memorable roles throughout her career. Actress Enya Flack. Enya, man, so much fun chatting with her. We were talking about a lot about her role currently on All the Queen's Men, which is on BET Plus. She plays D.A. Rods. We talked about a really neat story. I think one of the biggest compliments to an actor is, hey, we're going to have you on for an episode. All right, now 2 episodes. And then you're a recurring character. So it's pretty cool to hear about, when you're doing this job for so long, you think, hey, I'm getting better and better and better. And that's so cool to be able to have that happen in her career. But man, so much fun talking to Enya. Her journey from North Carolina, really going to school more behind the scenes stuff. And she was doing like pageants as a kid, but somebody's scouting for other types of talent, these male models. She's there and says, hey, you have this look, and talks to her, and her life changed forever. She, within no time, was starting to the acting scene. Talked about early in her career landing roles on amazing shows that everybody loved. I know I did. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Wayne's Brothers, Jamie Foxx Show, Malcolm and Eddie, and then she's on like NYPD Blue, Ally McBeal. But one thing that was really neat talking to her about was a series that was a Roger Corman epic special, Black Scorpion. If you have not seen it, watch it. You can watch it anywhere. It is perfect. They have Frank Gershwin in an episode playing like a Riddler type character. I think his name's like the Timekeeper or something. But it's really campy, perfect like Roger Corman, and still holds up. So we talked a little bit about that. And we just talked about her career, her journey, doing things in the beginning, behind the scenes, working as a PA on Step by Step. So we talked about former guest Bill Bickley, who was the creator of that show and a ton of other TGIF shows. And also Friends. She worked on Friends, so she had a neat story from that. But yeah, so much fun. I love hearing about folks' journey, and Enya was so cool. So before I start the interview, if you're new here, thanks for checking us out. Please subscribe, follow us on all social media at Sequels Only. Go on YouTube, subscribe. You can watch the unedited interview. And if you're back, you look great. I love what you're doing with your hair. So without further ado, here is Actress Enya Flack. So before I started recording, you mentioned North Carolina. That's where you grew up as well, right?
Right, exactly.
All right. What part of North Carolina? Is it like close to Charlotte, closer to the coast?
Right in North Carolina, right in Charlotte. Yeah.
Oh, no way. Cool.
Grew up here and moved out to LA for a long time and then came back here to
Smart.
look after my mom more than anything else. But
That's
it's
nice.
been a good move for a number of reasons. So yeah.
Yeah. So early on, how'd you get the acting bug? Was it the normal, like, oh, there was a play going on in school, or watching a TV or film? What was that first thing that made you think, oh, maybe this is the path I want to go on?
I don't know if I ever really did. I mean, I kind of dreamed about it a little bit, but I was always really shy as a kid, and I would watch. I would, but I played instruments, piano and harp and whatnot, and so I was always in an orchestra for something for the school plays and whatever. But I would have never auditioned because I was, just way too shy for that, and I
Yeah.
kind of fell into acting a little bit by accident. So
Okay. Well, it's actually working. Obviously, it's working out, because I think it's so cool. I want to mention
it's
it
working
now.
out pretty
So,
well.
yeah. So for the
Fell
last
into it.
two seasons, right? You're playing district attorney Rods on All the Queen's Men on BET Plus, which you get on like Amazon, all of those places you can get that service. So that's gotta be a lot of fun. Like being on a series, I think, no matter what, working's working. But nowadays, the way TV series are, there's like so much development in characters, it seems, versus it was. So how much fun has that been playing that role?
mean, it's been great. And it's so funny when you get these roles, half the time you don't necessarily know um what the extent of them, because I it was just supposed to be a guest star, and then it became a recurring guest star, and then it became a strong recurring guest star. So, and it's been a nice little ride, to be honest with you, and just a lot of fun. Seeing, just because we're starting to see a different side of this character of DA Rods. She's been strictly by the book for the past, season and a half or so. And now we're going into season eight. I mean, I'm sorry, episode eight. And you're starting to see that little, she's
That's
got, I
cool.
won't say a dark side, but she's not strictly by the book by any means. So
That's great, and
it's
that's
been
cool you
fun.
mentioned that. Obviously, to get a job and they say, "Hey, this you have 22 episodes for a season, you're gonna be in every episode." But I think it shows, it's a testament to your work, because if you're only there supposed to be for a day, or not a day, but you know what I mean, for an episode, and then they're like, "Oh,
But
we want you back." And it's like, wow, because you know what? A lot of these episodes are sort of written, something's written ahead of time. So then they're going back
mhm.
and be like, "Man, we have to have Enya and more." They just keep adding you in. That's got to be a really cool to show how great of a job you're doing on set.
It's nice, I don't know if it's me or the character who's resonating with the with the fans, but whatever it is, I'm really happy about it.
Well, that's awesome. So back to your origin story. So how did you accidentally get into acting?
Well, so I was living in Washington, DC at the time, and, I was engaged to a guy right out of college. We ended up breaking up, and I was just distraught over the whole thing, and I just pretty much, basically on a whim, decided to move to California,
Oh my god.
just to get a change of space and perspective and all of that stuff, and, it's kind of a I think kind of a gutsy move on my part, because I didn't have a job. I didn't have a lot in the way of money. I didn't have I knew one person just sort of right outside San Francisco, and it was my ex's brother. Uh, so it was an interesting time, but I found a job, and I, started out doing like a retail job, hated it, and then I got a second job because the retail stuff wasn't paying enough, and, it was at a modeling school, and I was teaching guys how to walk up and down a runway, basically. I had, like, a little background in modeling, all
Okay.
through school, and yeah, and so I got hired to do that, and, one day, a talent manager came from LA to scout for new talent at our little school, and, as a teacher, I wasn't supposed to get to talk to him, and I thought, "Oh, that'd be kinda fun," but I it was not anything that I was seriously gonna try to do, but he came to my office. He saw me in my office, came in, and just started talking to me. He says, have you ever thought about acting?" And I was like, "Well, no, not really." I took one class in college, and, he asked me to read some sides, some lines with him, and he looked at me, he says, I really think I could represent you. You've got a great look, and, now's a good time, and blah, blah." And I just thought, "Oh, come on, give me a break." I'm not buying this. And he says, would you come to LA if I can get you an audition?" And I said, "Well, would you move to LA?" And I said, "No, I don't think so. I just moved to San Francisco." And then he asked me if I'd come down for an audition, if he could get me one. In 2 weeks, he got me an audition. I flew down. It was on a Friday. That was my one day off a week, and I flew down on a Friday. Got a call back, which was later that afternoon, and booked the first thing I ever read for in my life.
Was that Fresh Prince?
No, it was a show called Out All Night.
Oh, okay.
It starred Vivica Fox,
Oh,
Morris
nice.
Chestnut, and Patty LaBelle,
Oh my god.
and
3
and it
heavy
was great.
hitters. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, I think that was probably Vivica's first, yeah, actually Vivica's and Morris Chestnut's first, their first, series regular roles, I think, so that
Wow.
was kinda, but anyway, but I worked Monday, and I just remember I had 2 lines. I worked for about 2 hours, and I made more in those 2 hours than I was making together with both of those jobs in San Francisco for a whole month. I'm like, let's think about this.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was kind of a night, but I ended up, taking acting lessons and all that sort of thing just along the way after I moved to LA.
Yeah, it's good to have that early success, like getting that first
Yeah,
audition. Again, not like you
it is.
after if it was like 5 or 6 or 10, you'd be like, "I don't wanna do this," but it's so cool because obviously you had some sort of interest. You took that acting class, and
Yeah,
obviously it just worked out, and then, be able to see, well, wow, this is the fruits of your labor, what it could be,
yeah.
and, wow, so right from there, you were like, "I'm getting down to LA?"
Pretty much. I mean, I was just sort of in that space in my mind at that time, and I was just sort of open, very open to things. I had, while I did not study acting prior to that, I was very accustomed to being on stage. As I mentioned,
Oh, yeah,
I was in
musical?
music.
Yeah, so you're used to people staring at you. Yeah, yeah, no, totally.
Used to that, and
Really?
I
That's what it
took
is, right?
and I went through the whole pageant. I did a lot of pageants and all that stuff and up
Okay.
into that. So I was used to being in front of people. So I think that's why it came, I guess, somewhat naturally for me, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I was very fortunate to to book something so quickly and just to be at that particular time in my life where I didn't have, anything holding me back and I just had a lot of nerve at the time. So
Just the
that
fact that
was
that guy was there scouting for other people. That's how so many of those stories are, because you never know, like,
yeah,
when you're going to scout, which I don't obviously, they still do that nowadays, but it's not the old school casting director going into, like, something like the modeling, going into a random comedy club to see maybe where's that diamond in the rough that I can get, like, early on and be able to have that fresh face, and he saw
yeah.
you, and he was like, "Alright, that's why I'm here," you know?
Yeah, yeah, my little Cinderella story, I guess. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it was kinda cool. I will say, looking back on it, I think, "How did that?" I mean, just right place, right time, right situation, all
Yeah.
of that. So,
That's
yeah.
cool. So you do that, you obviously end up getting down to LA. Were you still going back and forth booking stuff, like, were Fresh Prince, was that when you were still living in San Francisco, or you were still in LA full time yet?
No, at that point, I was there full time. Let's see, I booked that first job, it was, like, in November, and I think I moved down in, I wanna say, like, March,
Oh, okay.
February or March the next year. So, but, the manager, he, took me on, to represent me, and that was when there was still a pilot season in place, and so I
Yeah.
moved down pilot season, and unfortunately, I, had a place to stay. I didn't I mean, I just, my mom knew somebody that she had graduated from college with who lived in LA, who was kind enough
Nice.
to say, "Well, until she gets her bearings, she can stay with us, me and my husband." And so they became my second family. So,
Aw.
but yeah, so that it was a fairly easy transition for me and, just again, the stars aligning and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, totally. And that time, like, TV wise, because there's always those different eras of TV. Like, you had, like, the Vancouver boom, like, when Vancouver started filming a lot of stuff in the late 80s and 90s. So that was the time that, like, you had these people that were theater actors in Vancouver and maybe didn't have that, "Hey, let me go down to LA or let me go to New York," that were able to get that opportunity. There were so many great shows around that time when you started, like Fresh Prince, Wayans Brothers, Jamie Foxx, Malcolm and Eddie. There was, like, so many, which, there should always be, that many, shows, but man, like, so many cool ones that you were able to, early on in your career, be able to work on.
That's so true. I mean, there was kind of a boom of sitcoms at that time,
And all
and that was
great.
back yeah, and that was back when you had 23 to 26 episodes
Mhm.
per season. So, they were really constantly needing co-stars, guest stars, whatever. And so, it was during that time I was sort of booking something, like maybe every 3 weeks or something, stuff, because there was that much opportunity, as you said, such a great time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you gotta think,
Business.
not a lot of channels at that time too, so, like, you're,
True.
like, it's like anything with a job, it's like, we want somebody with experience, but how do you get experience? You have to get hired for that first time. But when you're on those shows, especially in the '80s and '90s, and you could tell me because you experienced it, it's almost like once you're on a show or, like, even, like, say, like, Fresh Prince, it's like, oh, okay, that's the girl that was on Fresh Prince, and then it's like, oh, we're gonna have her episode of Wayne's Brothers, and so on. It's like it's such a wild thing. It's like once somebody gives you that shot, or you can nail that audition and get that first shot, it was like wildfire in that era. I don't know if it's the same nowadays. If you're on an
Yeah,
ABC sitcom as a guest star, I don't know if it's the same because there's so many other shows on at the same time. It's different.
yeah. 100%. Yeah, 100% right about that, I
Yeah.
think.
Well, that's cool. Now, early on, because obviously, like this is got to be kind of a whirlwind in a way. Did you keep any mementos from that early part of your career, like scripts or anything?
Oh, yeah, for sure, I have got some scripts. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you another funny little thing. So, I grew up with, 2 teachers for parents who and
Ah,
so I
my
had
wife's a
that
I'm
work
married to
ethic.
a teacher. Yeah.
So, yeah, so I definitely had that work ethic and, gotta get it, have a job, just, like, don't be flying by the seat of your pants with no other, nothing else, a fallback thing. So, I had actually studied, radio, TV, film in college with an
Oh,
emphasis
sweet.
in journalism, but my degree was more on the production side than in front of the camera. So I was able to get a job at Warner Brothers. And so during the time that I was got to be a production secretary for one of the unit production managers on a sitcom, on a bunch of sitcoms. But so I actually have a script. I say all that because at one point, I got to be a stage PA. And so I actually have the original script from the pilot for Friends.
Really?
So yeah,
Wow.
I did. So, here's a little piece of trivia for you. So, try to guess the original name of, for the pilot, what the
Of
pilot was called, it was Friends.
oh, the name. Oh my gosh.
Here's true.
The coffee
So, there
shop
were
or
that would have been a better title.
you really? Oh my god. What was it?
It's a horrible title. The problem was there were, if I'm not mistaken, 6 different, pilots during that pilot season that had the word "Friends" in it. So the original title for Friends is Six of One.
6 of ugh,
6 of
that would
One.
not have made it.
Horrible.
Was it all the
So
same
and it
people when you were on that for the pilot? It was those 6?
Mhm.
There was no, swap outs or anything? Wow.
No swap outs. It was originally written with, it was sort of supposed to be sort of based around, Courtney Cox. She was the most well-known of the 6
Oh,
of
that's true,
them.
yeah, Bruce Springsteen
Bruce
video and
Springsteen. Yep,
yeah.
yep, exactly, and yeah, I mean, it was really, that was a really cool experience, especially since it became, the show that it became, so,
Yeah.
yeah, so I still have that script,
Like, when you're there, obviously, like, anything you've ever been on, it's like you never know. You can maybe feel because you're controlling one part of it. You're acting, you're scene. You don't know how the edits are gonna be, the way, the story's gonna be put together and everything. So, but, like, when you read that script, 6 for 1, right? 6 for 1?
one, yeah,
Ugh.
yeah.
Like, would you have thought in a million years that that would even been, "Alright, it's gonna get a 2nd season," right? Isn't that crazy?
I thought it was terrible. I mean, I really didn't find it funny at all.
Yeah.
And, you're there every day and you're kinda watching it and you seeing the writers changing the lines and all that sort of thing, and I just thought, "This is not really funny." And if you look at, just for anybody who's into this kind of stuff, if you go back and look at the original episode, you'll see, I mean, massive change in the characters from the first episode to,
Yeah.
the last season. So, yeah.
That's neat to
And the
do to go
jokes
back and watch pilots because even the first Seinfeld pilot, maybe it's why those
Yeah,
shows actually did stand the test of time. It'd be cool to watch any of these shows, go back and just watch
true.
the first one because maybe that's why they did work because they watched the first one and said, "Guys, this isn't working. Like, we need to change stuff." And maybe the ones that fail are the ones that are like, "This is it." And they keep the same formulaic thing, don't change anything. But no, that's interesting. That's cool that you were able to be there. What other so what was it like doing that job? Like working on different sets from the behind the scenes versus being in front of the camera?
mean, I really loved it, and I really value the time that I got to do that, be on that side of the camera because, it just gives you a whole different perspective as an
Yeah.
actor. The importance of well, a lot of different things. I because I did production as well as post production. Learned a lot doing post production, especially with editing and whatnot, and knowing when to hold for laughs and don't do, and not making too much noise, just little things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was I really loved it. I mean, I can tell you stuff about, how they add in sound effects, and I, became friends with all the prop guys that, and how you have to set up, I don't know, props and so that they're not identifiable. They're identifiable, but you can't really see a name. For example, if you ever look at, say, a cereal box or something,
Oh,
say
yeah,
it's,
yeah, yeah.
Kellogg's, right, you'll see Rice Krispies or whatever, but Kellogg's, you'll see, like, KEL and then a
Yeah,
piece
yeah.
of tape, like, that kinda stuff so that they don't have to pay,
Isn't it just a silly thing? Like, that's part of the it's like Kellogg's can't get money for that, but it's like, we all know that it's Kellogg's. You're just
Right,
taking out the first
exactly.
like, every brand, whenever they do it, or even if they do the let's not have the name on it, but have the same sort of logo. Like, on app instead of an apple, it's like a pear, but it's the same,
Right?
like, white silhouette. It's crazy, and it's pretty cool. Now I just see that on your IMDb. So, Step by Step you worked on, I interviewed, Bill Bickley.
Did you? Oh my
Yeah, I
gosh, yeah.
interviewed his best friend from growing up. Like, it's so funny when you think about anytime you ever hear like, "Oh, yeah, these 2 athletes went to the same high school," it's like, that's insane. Like, how can 2 like, in anything? But, it was Bill Bickley, God, I'm gonna oh my god, what was her name?
McLaurin.
Well, she's
Oh,
in a
oh,
million
her
things. I should know her name, but I interviewed, his friend Susan, Lanier Bramlett, and they were, like, best friends, and she mentioned, like, "Oh, yeah, this guy Billy was really nice," and, he gave me a job, and then I'm like, "Oh, what was his name?" She's like, "Oh, William Bickley," and I look, and I'm like, "Oh my god, this guy's done, like, so much, created so much." And the other woman, it's
Yeah.
gonna come to my she has blonde hair. She's been in everything. She's one of those, I feel like she was even on, like, Dallas or all those soaps. I'll get her name.
Oh,
It'll eventually come
Char
to me.
Charlene Tilton or, Donna
Shit.
Mills
You know what's
or,
terrible? You ever have a reference for an actor? Like, I know a million things that she's in, but the only thing I can think of right now, she plays herself in Pee-wee's Big Adventure at the end of the movie.
which I never saw.
Oh, man. But,
Ah,
I'll get her name real quick. But anyway, yeah, no, so Bill, talk about a show. I remember watching that pilot when I went to interview him because I thought that'd be really interesting, and I watched one of the episodes of, Happy Days that he directed early on or no, he didn't direct, he
yeah,
wrote, and it was
right.
crazy 'cause Happy Days used to be shot like a movie, and it was kind of, like,
Mhm.
boring and slow, and then they changed it, and obviously, look what happened with that, but, Step by Step, talk about another show like his Family Matters, that you have a character that's not in the first 5, 6 episodes big, and then they're the show.
Er
Urkel
Yep.
and also,
Yeah.
Cody on Step. He
That's
became like
right.
this
Yeah.
huge character in that show.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun. You just never know what can happen in the business, which is one of the reasons that I love it so much. You just
Totally, yeah.
never know.
Yeah, and her name's
Yeah.
Morgan Fairchild. I think I
Yeah, of
described her
course.
terribly, but,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
and a
yeah.
million things, but yeah, there were 3 friends growing up, them 3, and then they all, like, go off and do their thing, but yeah, Step by Step, I see Getting By, On Her Own, High Society, so some
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
cool shows with some amazing names. Jean Smart, now she's, like,
Yeah.
monster,
Jane
you know?
Smart and, Mary McDonough.
Yeah.
Not or she, Mary McDonough played uh, the love interest, I can't remember, in, Dances with Wolves with,
Oh,
Kevin
yeah, yeah,
Costner.
yeah, with Kevin Costner, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's cool to get that perspective because then when you're going in for auditions at the same time, because 'cause you're doing this both at the same time for a little bit, it's good to know maybe like, hey, what's the casting director say they're looking for or director? So when you go in for an audition, you're more prepared because you never know what the conversation is after you leave that room.
For sure, for sure, and I got to do a bit of casting too. Actually, I was working with the executive producers for, High Society, And
Oh,
so
cool.
that cast, I mean, I had never done any casting at that point or been in on anything like that before, but just the process, I mean, that was a huge eye opener. I mean, we saw hundreds of people, and it was just, it's just I would not wanna do casting at all. It's just, because quite honestly, in for one of those characters, it just they the guys really weren't even able to articulate what exactly they were looking for.
I'm sure.
They just knew what they saw it, they knew the person when they
Yeah.
saw it.
No,
So,
that
it
is
was just
funny when you
kind of
think about that, and I'm sure you've seen that from both sides, like, even being on a show and it's like, "Man, why can't they fill this person?" Because I've talked to some casting directors and they just it's like, "I can't find the right person." And sometimes it's like a very principal character that matters, and then sometimes it's
Mhm.
somebody that's just in the background. Like, I talked to a casting guy that
Right.
was obsessed with Woody Harrelson for Wildcats, and he's big in the movie, but not like a main part, and this guy kept bringing him in for auditions, even after the director was like, "I don't want to see this guy again." And then after 3 months of not being able to find that guy, brought him in again, and they finally casted him. But you just never know because you never know what you're looking for. It's got to be so hard. You're making a decision on the people that you're going to trust with, you know, millions of dollars in a sense for 3, 4
That's
months, and you have to work with them.
that's true. That's true.
It's
It's a tough
but
job.
that's cool you get to see that. That's neat to be able to see that early on. So you're doing acting classes around this time. Was there any type of because in the beginning you're in mostly like, TV comedies, TV sitcoms, and then you're I'm sure you're auditioning for others, but in '98 you're on NYPD Blue.
Right?
That must have been a cool little change of pace to see a different way of a show is ran.
It was, and that was a huge show at the time.
Oh my god, yeah.
Um, and I remember because that they were the first show where you saw, body parts that you didn't normally see, and so that you had to, sort of sign off on on agreeing to, well,
Yeah.
if you're asked, do you, show your rear or what, partial nudity, whatever, and I remember like, oh boy, I did not wanna say yes to that, but, it was just kinda like, well, say yes because it doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna happen, and maybe you can negotiate it later and all that, so if you're lucky enough to get the job and that sort of stuff. So,
Yeah.
on that episode of all things, I played a stripper, but I didn't have to take my clothes off, so
Oh, there you
they
go.
just
That's good.
so it worked out just fine,
Yeah.
but that's the one where that was one of those cases where I got called back, I think 3 times, something like that, and you had to do, something different every time, and, yeah.
Yeah, is that like you
You
said,
just
like even getting called back 3 times for a role, did you have a lot of lines in that? Is there just one scene of being interviewed there?
it was just a couple of scenes, and, Nicholas Turturro was interviewing me and all that, but yeah, but they kept changing the lines, and then at one point, I even had to dance, which like, okay. That was, for the audition, which
Yeah,
I think that was the worst part for me,
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. It's
but
auditioning enough is I'm sure an awkward experience. Probably an awkward experience that you're used to the awkwardness of it. It's like 3 people there and it's like it depends. I'm sure some rooms are more inviting than others, so that's gotta be a little awkward to be like, "Okay, now can we try this new thing?" And it's like,
and then
Yeah.
especially, and it's so different. Yeah, I'm sure, it's so different now with
Oh my
everything,
god. It's gotta,
practically
like, be
everything. It's something.
horrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to not be able to have that, like, moment in that room to be able to gel with people. I think from both ends, I think maybe that's why that some movies that are strictly doing that, I know most are, but it could seem clunky with the casting in some cases, because obviously that's something that's always happened, like, in film, like that in TV, like, that can happen, but you don't get to build that rapport or be able to say, "Hey, can you do this a different way?" Right on the spot. I'm sure obviously you can email them back after you watch the film that they do, and it's just not it's no emotion in the experience.
Yeah, and the casting directors used to ask you, "So, do you have any questions about this?
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
have any and that's not you don't get to do that anymore, like, well, let
Yeah,
me,
because that could have been
basically
something that got you the job, and it's
throw
like,
something against the
it could
wall and hopefully it sticks,
yeah, because you could have been able to ask a question that was something like, wow, we never thought about that for that character. And it really opened their
Right.
eyes. And before you even read a line, they're like, wow, you know what? She's thinking more than anybody that's been in here today. But you just don't have that chance anymore, I guess. Or the like
Yeah.
I talked to William Sadler, who he auditioned for Tales from the Crypt, and some the casting director was like, "Oh, I know him from New York. He's a Broadway guy. Let me just give him this little line." So he was like, he got the script and he was like, "Oh, I want to do this one." And they're like, no, no. So he did his audition that they wanted him to do. He went outside, he came back in, he's like, "Can I please read for this?" And then he read for it, and then it was like, that's the role that changed his life. And it's like,
Wow.
would it have
Wow.
happened 5 films down or 5 auditions down? But you just never know.
Mhm.
But if you don't have that opportunity in that room, it's not like just a different time now. Maybe we'll go back. Maybe. I don't know.
I hope so, but, I've talked to a few casting directors and, they and a as ma the ones that I spoke with, they miss that dynamic too, but, they kinda don't really think that it's going to ever fully go back to the way it was, which is it's a shame, but, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure that from a financial standpoint, this is probably I don't know if that what the main reason is, but, um from an efficiency standpoint, I don't know, this may be easier, I'm not sure, but, it's
Yeah, I'm
I'm
sure it's
glad
the
I got
money.
to be a
It's
part of
always the
either
money.
way.
It's like it's even corporations like during COVID. Like I love it because I get to work from
Yeah,
home and be with my kids and stuff, and not have to go on a train to New York City. I love that. But in the
mhm,
same sense, obviously, there's some things that are missed, like the
yeah,
commute, and like there are those things I guess you benefit. But the company is like, wow, I have to pay rent each month,
yeah,
or do
right, yeah,
electricity and all these different things. So I see it, but I think it in something that is so important as in like chemistry. I just think there's
mhm,
probably not those moments anymore. Maybe somebody's audition you've never seen before, like an actor and actress that hasn't been in stuff.
right,
Maybe they can get that chance. But in that room, when the people walk in the first time they see, because the same thing with you, like when the guy was going to scout for the male models and he saw you, like that's kind of those moments when it comes to an audition, like a cattle call, when they're looking for that next so and so. Like I don't know how they do that nowadays.
I don't know, I really don't know, and it's funny, speaking of the whole chemistry thing, they used to do chemistry tests between actors as well. I did a film last year, um, and, I never met with the other I was playing love interest with another actor, and, there was there was a scene where we had this passionate kiss, and so, you just kinda go for it and hope it works out, and hope it, looks okay on screen and all that sort of thing, but, yeah, it was interesting, and I mean, overall, I think it worked out okay, but it is,
Yeah,
it's just a little awkward
yeah.
to, never met somebody before and like, "Okay, let's go for it."
That's gotta be. Yeah, because you wanna practice everything. Obviously, your job is to whatever is seen on camera to seem, like, authentic. So if it
Yeah,
came off like, "This is the first time," or something,
that's true.
that's really funny. So it's cool.
Wow.
Again, like, the NYPD Blue Monster Show at the time, Ally McBeal, Steve Harvey. But I think one thing that was really cool, because I think it's like Scorsese says it. There's like so many people looking back. Roger Corman, like you having the opportunity to work on Black Scorpion, which I'm going to tell you right now, I've never seen before, but over the last week, I've seen half of them. They are
Oh,
so
no.
cool. I I love them and they're so neat. And I think one thing that's cool about like what Corman would do, or even like the full moon, some of the full moon projects in the 90s, they would always look good. Like I don't know the last time you watched one or watched a clip, it still looks really good. Like it doesn't seem dated, and it's the cast is great. Having Frank Gershwin as a guest villain in one is so cool.
Yeah, and Adam West and,
Yes.
I think Soupy Sales, and I mean, all these great old actors. Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was really cool to get to work with those actors as well, and, now that was a case where I actually read for that 4 times, got called back 4 times. believe it or not, for that. And each time I wasn't enough this, I was too this, and whatever. And what I kind of attributed my final success in getting that role to a girlfriend's dress. I had a friend visiting from the East Coast at that time, and they called me again for the fourth time. And I remember saying to her, "You know what? I don't even know what else I can do. I mean, I have no idea. I don't even know what to wear." And she says, "Oh, well, let me see what if I have in my suitcase." And she travels with lots of clothes all the time. She goes through, and we find this teeny tiny little leopard print
Oh, I was
dress.
gonna say it was a leopard because they use that a lot.
That was it.
That's
And that, I mean,
cool.
I don't know if that dress was the inspiration for all of the characters' wardrobe going forward, but, again, you never know what is gonna be the thing that puts you over the top, I guess, or keeps you from going over the top, I guess.
Yeah, and the writing was really good. It was really neat, and yeah, your chemistry with Argyle, and like the episode that I got that I watched yesterday was the one with Frank Gershwin, and it was funny because the writing was so good because he was making the jokes about calling you the old lady, and then
Yeah.
in the episode, then you all turn old. It's great.
That was so okay, and it's funny you mentioned that because whenever I'm asked, is there one show any show you especially remember love doing or whatever, it's that one. That's
Yeah.
I mean, that it's, just the prosthetics that they had to do to make us look, like we're on our 90s, that was a lot of fun. But, that was really interesting too because that day after BT is the actor's name,
Yeah.
Argyle, who played Argyle, we were in our makeup, and both of us were just in the grouchiest mood. I mean, and both of us were just kinda tired and just like, "Ugh, when are we gonna shoot this scene?" I mean, it was really and we always got along great and had great rapport with everybody in the cast and whatever, but the funny thing was, we shot the scene, got us out of the makeup, and we are both like it's played like some sort of weird psychological trick on both of us, seeing yourself aged. I don't know. It was the weirdest thing. But yeah, but that was a lot of fun. That was really a lot of fun. And I remember, God rest his soul, Frank Gorsham, he was so much fun to work with too.
Yeah, he was a
Just
real
a lot of
hand, like, always,
yeah.
and he always looked the same, even, like, even, like, thinking back to the Riddler, that's almost like a 30-ish year
Yeah.
difference. Same
Yeah.
energy, same everything, you know? It's almost like him and, John Aston. They both have this energy that it seems like they'll have it for and Adam West, like, yeah, it's really cool that he had the opportunity to do that, and to work for Corman because he is like I don't know. He's like one of the godfathers of film in a sense. Like he
Absolutely.
he's
Yeah.
so he's so cool, and it's just such a cool thing. And for you again, you're on
Yeah.
something 22 episodes. Like that was pretty neat that you had that.
It's funny because I still have the same manager that I had all those years ago,
Really?
and,
That's cool.
just yeah, and just by chance, it's funny, we're talking about this, just by chance, he met up with Michelle Lintel, who played Black Scorpion, just yesterday for lunch.
No way.
Yeah. So we kinda talked a little bit on the phone and, just kinda caught up a little bit, so, yeah. It
If
was
you ever
fun.
have, I always tell people because it's like you never want to Google yourself. I'm sure, but if you ever go on YouTube, the comments, people love this show, and I'm sure in the last 10, 15 years with like the internet and things, I'm sure you've had more people reach out about it. Or have you done any Comic Cons like and
I
gone
have
to
it's
them
been a
for
while.
it?
Yeah, it's been a while since I did one, but, yeah, but you know what? I might have to see about doing one of those again because
Yeah.
they were lots of fun. I loved them. Going to doing the autographs, and then the fans are such fans. Like you
Oh
said, they
yeah.
know all the episodes, all the lines, all the everything.
No, that's really cool. It just was something different at that time because I don't know what other shows, if there was a female lead superhero. I mean, obviously, there's like Supergirl in the '80s, like Xena was on in the late '90s, but it was just it just still looks good. Like it's always great when you watch something that's so old and you're like, oh, how does this look? And like that show really does hold up.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you said hear you say that because it was pretty campy, and but
Oh,
I thought, but
but yeah,
you know,
yeah.
so fun, and, you really couldn't go too far with anything because it was a comic book kinda series, and, yeah, I'm glad that I got to be a part of it too.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. No, it's always cool, like, to have the opportunity, like we talked about, like what you're doing now, like to be on a series, and it just gives you the opportunity to like build a character development, like try different things with the one character. But again, all that time you're still working, you were on all of those great, like it was so cool thinking of that era, like so many great comedies and sitcoms, like the Parkers. I watched all the time as a kid. Son of the
Yeah,
Beach was ridiculous and but so funny. Fox VIP, you did a lot of the Fox like around that time, like some Fox shows?
I did. Did you know that VIP was, produced at least in part by, Howard Stern? Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. I would think Son of
Yeah,
the Beach. Wow,
what
VIP,
did it
really?
Son
That's
of the
cool.
Beach, did it is that what I yeah, that is that what I said? Yeah, Son of the Beach, yeah, that was for that one, because I was up for the role of, I can't remember her name, but, Lila Arcieri got the part, but, it was down to 3 of us that for one of those series regulars, for that series
Really?
regular, and, unlike most callbacks, for that final callback, we had to do the callback was done in a big auditorium. Um, and there were only about maybe, I'd say maybe 10 people in the room, but we had to walk down an aisle and then to the front and do the lines with somebody who was, sitting right there at the front. But about halfway down the aisle, Howard Stern was sitting there. And and apparently commenting to all of us as we passed by. So we were all just a little like, okay, it was interesting times.
Oh my
But it was
god.
funny. I mean, it wasn't bad or nothing like that, but it was just kind of, you see people that you recognize, like Howard Stern. I once read for, what was his name? Sean Cassidy, who I remembered from
Oh.
being a kid. He was one of the Hardy Boys, that kinda stuff. He was kind of a heartthrob way back when. And, I remember, and at that point, he was directing, something that I had auditioned for. But, it's always interesting, or it was always interesting to sort of run into people that you remember seeing as a kid, for example.
Yeah, I'm sure that's gotta be cool, like, in all the shows that you worked on, like, because there's probably so many p like, especially Steve Harvey, great comedian. It's gotta be cool to be on those shows, and it's like, "Wow, this is, neat." Like, that show was huge, like, man.
Yeah, yeah, and Steve is a good guy. He was a lot of fun to work with. Also, very down to earth. And, just very supportive and, just in your corner. Yeah, "Oh, don't you worry about it. That's funny." And he just made the set a lot of fun to be on. Most I've been really fortunate. Most of the sets that I've gotten to work on have been really, um, just genuinely fun to work
That's good to
on.
hear. Yeah, because it's gotta be hard to, like, be because you're going there's this group of people that are together every week shooting something, then each week a guest star will come in, so obviously for them, it's advantageous to make the person feel at home and comfortable. Obviously, that I'm sure that wasn't always the case on some sets, but that's cool for you to say that. Like, I've heard cool stories about people that it's like, "Oh, yeah, they helped me with a line," and it's like, they didn't not like they didn't need to do that, they were kind to do that, but, just makes you feel like, wow, this is really they want this to be a success. Like they know that everyone that is here matters. So it's cool that you're able to get some advice, especially Steve Harvey. That's cool.
Absolutely.
And then you're again back to like really cool shows like CSI Miami, Sopranos, and then I think one obviously all these different genres that you're working on. And then was Days of Our Lives in like 2008 the first time you did a soap, or did you audition for them prior?
I had auditioned for them, before, but I had even screen tested for a role on, uh, The Young and the Restless. But no, I've never done anything. I've been a day player twice on Days of Our Lives, but that's it. And it's funny because I always said I wanted to do a soap. That's the one thing I kind of wanted to do
Really?
as an actor. Yeah, I loved soaps when I when I was in college. In fact, I worked my class schedule around all my children. for a
That's
while.
great.
But I don't know, it sort of eluded me. There's a new soap that you may have heard of called, Beyond the Gates that I believe airs I think it's starting this Monday,
Really?
and they shoot it it's gonna be a new CBS soap, that is, being shot in Atlanta right
Cool.
now, but, I was on hold for a couple of roles there, but it didn't happen either, so I don't know, there's something about me and soap operas that, almost, but not quite.
How'd you like it when you're on Days of Our Lives? That must have been 'cause from that's like almost like boot camp for acting
Yeah,
because
that's
it's
true.
so like quick, 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 quick. We gotta get this going on.
It is, that's a good, analogy. Yeah, I mean, I liked it, it's, more about who I got to work with. The second time that I did Days of Our Lives, I worked with, Jackée Harry, which was a lot of
Oh my
fun.
god, yeah, that's gotta be
She's
awesome.
kind of iconic.
Yeah,
But yeah, and it's funny because I think getting to do that was very helpful for the series that I'm on now,
yeah.
All the Queen's Men, because of the way that, they shoot at Tyler Perry Studios. I don't know if anybody's, talked to you about
I've
that in the
talked to
past,
a
but
couple people that had but not regulars, like one-off things because it's like it's so crazy how that's like a hub now. And it's so great for
yeah,
you. Obviously, you wanted to be there with mom anyway, and you're so
yeah,
close to Atlanta, you know?
it's worked out really nicely, really nicely. The way that, they shoot most of the shows, or I'm told all the shows, is that essentially you'll get I'll just talk about all the Queen's Men. We essentially get 1 or 2 takes at best
Okay.
for any given scene. The show is there's 16 episodes per season, and everything is shot within about 2.5 to 3 weeks, a whole season.
Oh my gosh.
And so yeah, so the days are long. They're typically, 14-hour day is not unusual. And the way it's done is that say you have uh, a scene, or say you have 5 different scenes from 4 different episodes in this room. So rather than shoot, okay, we're going to do episode 1 today, episode 2 tomorrow, whatever, you
Oh,
shoot
wow.
all of the scenes that are in that location, which, is very, very efficient, but it also kind of forces you to sort of, um, you have to learn your lines very quickly, and you have to know what's going on, but, between the episode from episode to episode, you have,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
really need to read all of the scripts before you even start shooting, so that you have an idea of what's going on. So it's, yeah, so in that way, doing the soap opera work actually was really helpful, being
Yeah,
able
I
to
bet.
memorize.
Wow, to shoot all in the same room, that's gotta be tough for, the people, they walk around with magnifying glasses, making sure hair length, shirts, like, everything, because if you're shooting something that yeah, that's pretty cool. That is,
Yeah,
super efficient, and again, at the end of the day, it just it's almost like the soap logic. It was like, we want our summers off. Like, we don't wanna work
for
in
sure.
summers, we don't wanna work near the holidays, and, I've talked to a few people, and it's like, it was great. It's a lot of work, and you're tired, but you're not working all year.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. When you first hear you're gonna do it that way, you're like, "What wait, what?" But hold on. But yeah, but you learn, and that's another case where it's a really supportive environment. They even have, people just outside the sets to read with you, and they'll come
Wow.
up to you like, "Do you wanna run lines?" And to run lines with you. So that's, that it's really nice. It's very, very supportive for the actor there.
It's an amazing like, that whole area, like, Tyler Perry Studio is supposed to be phenomenal, and it's huge, right?
It's huge, it's beautiful. I mean, I've been on a lot of lots, and it's definitely the prettiest I've ever seen, and there's just this really cool energy, from the actors, from the people who work, security on the lot. I mean, everybody, there's like I've said this a few times, but there's like seemingly a sense of gratitude that everybody seems to have. They're just happy to be there and
Yeah.
happy to be working. So, it's a really cool environment.
That is great because you think about like in Hollywood, like how many places are closing down, like studio wise, and you see the doors shut, or like they knocked down that entire neighborhood that they used all of those for like Lethal Weapon, Christmas Vacation. Like they tore that whole like history, like just to build studios so they don't have to worry about doing. Yeah, but that's cool that Tyler Perry they're building one in Jersey. Supposedly Netflix was bought this old like uh military base that was down the shore that's been like defunct for years. They're supposed to be building like a studio because then they can have that pipeline to New York. I don't know if that's really going to happen because but you never know, but that's cool. Atlanta has that hub and Marvel's big down there. A lot of movies have filmed down
Huge,
there the
yeah.
last 20, 25 years.
Yeah, yeah, it's really been a surprise. I mean, when I moved back here, I figured, well, maybe I'll get to do a commercial or something. I'll try to get an agent. Maybe I'll
Yeah,
get to do a commercial here and there. And I wasn't really sure what my plan was, but my mom, like I said, is getting older, and it just kind of felt like the right time to move back.
totally.
Uh, but I've been, yeah, really surprised and thrilled actually that the the fact that there's been so much opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's great. And at what time? Because you're doing this. How do the other avenues come about? Like Deal or No Deal. You're on Price is Right as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, in LA, you don't just have it, and let me start on the East Coast. You usually have one agent that represents you for commercials, for anything that's on camera. You have one agent. It's
Oh,
not that's not the case on the West Coast. So you have a commercial agent, you have a theatrical agent, you have somebody who represents you if you model, if you do hosting and reporting. So I did all of those things. So I had all of the and if you dance, there's an agent for everything. And so, so yeah, so when these opportunities came up, I thought, well, okay, let's do this. Let's try that. So yeah, the Deal or No Deal opportunity, interestingly enough, came to me through my hosting agent at the time. And I'd gone in one day, and there was like one other woman in the room or waiting room, waiting to speak with the producer. And I got a call back the next day. Well, I was originally told that Howie Mandel needed a co-host for a new show. So that's how, like, okay, great. So the next day when I go for the call back, there's a room full of people. And, at that point I had been in LA for a while, so I kind of knew who my competition was for
yeah.
hosting reporting jobs, and I didn't recognize anybody in there. And I called my agent. I said, is this a hosting job or is it a modeling job? Because there's a lot of beautiful women here and I don't, know any of them. And I got well, here's the thing. They've kind of changed the idea and here's what's going to happen. And I thought, I don't know if I, and I just didn't get the concept. I really
Yeah.
didn't understand. Like, what do you mean? 26? No, I don't, yeah. Um, but I went on through the call back and I was asked to do the pilot. But I turned it down just because I just didn't have the vision. I just didn't see it. But after the first season, I was starting to see a lot of the spokesmodels showing up on shows like Entertainment Tonight and doing little hosting things for, E and whatnot. And I thought, oh boy, I mean, I may have shot myself in the foot here by not taking it. So, so I called the agent. I said, "Is there any way you can see if you can get me if they'd consider, And they did, and so I got to do it. Yeah, so
That's
that's
cool.
how that's that story.
I think it's
But
such a nerve-wracking show. How far did
yeah,
you were you ever like one of the last few that were
I
left?
was. Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
You always you definitely wanted to be chosen first. That chosen as the one that they thought had the $1,000,000 in it
Oh,
because
yeah, yeah,
they yeah, because we're standing on in about 6-inch heels for a long time. So after a while,
yeah.
you're like, "Oh, please pick me." But it was just, from a comfort standpoint, you had more airtime, more FaceTime, but
Yeah.
but you're killing you. But no, that was a great experience too, and it's a great example of how you just never know, or how I just never knew what one opportunity could open the door to
Yeah.
another opportunity.
That is true. You never would think that show would be as big as it was, because the concept was silly. Like Howie had like so much fun with it, and he was like kind of off TV for a little bit, and it was
Mhm.
just. I talked to Patricia Cara. I don't know if she was there at the
Yeah.
same time you were
Oh,
there.
I love Patricia, she's one of my
Yeah.
closest buddies.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
was that was appointment television. Everybody watched that show. I don't know how quick it became that hit, but it was like, oh, I gotta watch. And then when it was, oh my God, when you had the cliffhanger for the next one, you had to wait, and they were like, oh, but we'll have to come back after the break or next episode. But it was just whenever the models would open, like you did this, but when you open it up and
Yes.
it's like a high amount, you probably were like, it's like you have no say in it, but you see just like the pain on these people, like losing like what's the lottery, like a huge chance at big money. That's like,
Yeah.
oh,
And you're really pulling for
oh
the
yeah,
contestants. You want them to win. I know it hurts. I mean, you're like, "I'm so sorry, it's not me."
yeah. Oh man, that's so cool that you had the chance to do that. And yeah, this has been so much fun. What I love asking folks, I asked you a few of the questions early on when it comes to like mementos, things kept. But how about like if this wasn't what you were gonna do? Again, I don't know if IMDb bios are always 100%, but it mentioned like
Mhm.
engineering, like that was the original
Yeah.
to DC. How crazy was
That
DC for college? Just with five or right? How many colleges are right there? I know there's a ton, but
There's
like
10.
five big one, right?
They're like 10, actually.
10?
I
That's
love
insane. Yeah, I
Yeah,
bet.
I loved going to school in DC. I
It's
it
beautiful.
was it was fantastic, and I went to George Washington, which is literally 6
Nice.
blocks from the White House. Um, that's pretty cool. I mean,
Yeah.
that's really very cool. I lived right around the street front right around the corner, sorry, from the State Department. So, you know, I could see the Washington Monument from my window. So, yeah, I loved it. I loved it.
That's awesome. So engineering, what was it? And then you changed. Then obviously you did like the production, the communications portion. Like what was the engineering at first? Did you have like a field, a portion of it that you wanted to go into?
Not exactly. I went through a number of programs, and I got a full scholarship for engineering at North Carolina State University. Engineering is
Oh,
very big
cool.
there. It's one of the top majors. But I was always really good at science and math. I just was not convinced that that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So, when it came time to decide, I was like, I don't want to, I don't want to do this. And I remember my dad thought I was out of my mind for giving up a full scholarship to any place. But I just knew it wasn't what I wanted. Um, and at that time, I thought I wanted to be a journalist. There weren't that many female reporters and journalists at the time, anchors at the time, but I was fascinated by those who were. I mean, I remember Barbara Walters and Connie Chung and people like
Yeah.
that. And that was what I wanted to do, and I wanted to go to school in New York City, and I got into Columbia, but my dad wouldn't let me go. So so Washington was actually, it was kind of a compromise because we had relatives there, and we figured, that's a great place if you wanna do news, there's a lot of news in Washington,
Yeah.
and um, yeah, so that was that.
That's awesome. How about like a dream type of character that you like to play, or like a genre that you want to act in? Is there something that you would want?
I've never I just finished watching The Jackal. Have you seen that?
Oh, with
Oh,
Edward Raymond, right? Ed Raymond,
with, oh gosh. Ed, oh gosh, his
Eddie
name is
Redmayne,
escaping
or
me right.
I think,
Thank
yeah,
you.
I
Yes,
know you're
yes,
talking
right.
about.
Yes,
Yeah, it's a remake of a Robert Redford movie, right?
exactly.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Um,
Yeah, I saw a cool thing
I
of the shot for shot remake they did of one scene. I'm sure they did it for a bunch, but there was like this rifle scene, and I watched the side by side. I love when people do that. They really do it right. Like it really looked
Yeah.
exactly the same, which is neat. I got to check that out.
It's a great series. I just finished it last night. I would love to get to play, the kind of that kind of a role, not the jackal per se, but
Yeah.
I liked the investigator, the Lauren Lynch, I think is her name. I think I thought she just was brilliant, and I would love to play that kind of a role.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've worked on so many cool shows that become obviously like we just talked about Deal or No Deal, but like these shows that become like larger than life, like that are forever in the ethos. And one that you're on, and it's such an enjoyable show that you get hooked on. Was Outer Banks. I know you were on one episode of that, but talk about a show that was just and that's shot there too, right? They shoot that in North Carolina.
It's actually shot in Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, yeah. It was like exactly. Yeah. The next
Yeah.
state over
Yeah,
instead of actually using the Outer Banks, right?
right, right. Yeah, that's a great show, and that has just really blown up, hasn't it?
Yeah, isn't it? It's just so crazy. Like you said, you would never know. Even when that show came out, it was like during might have been like in the beginning of COVID, and it was like, oh, let me try this show, and it's like, wow. And then then when I went to, just like every show, like when you have an idea and you have it for even for one movie, and like we talk about sequels a lot, it's like the basis of the podcast. And it's like it's so crazy how it can go because once you make that first movie, you're like, wow, this is great. Or that first series of a show or first season. It's like, all right, well, what are you gonna do next? And it's like, well, you got to do something different. You can't do the same thing or you'd be done. Like the fact that Outer Banks went like it just got crazy. Like, the stuff that those kids were doing was
Yeah.
insanity,
Right.
but it's fun, but that's what you kinda appreciate. It's like, you know what, they really jumped the shark. Like, what's his name from, Chip, the actor
Yeah.
that plays the dad, like, fake blowing himself up in the one episode. Spoiler alert, if people
Mhm.
haven't seen I'm sure people have seen that yet, yeah, no, it's so much fun, but that's cool, it's been so much fun. I'm happy we connected. I love hearing your story, and I think it's again right place, right time. And the person they didn't know when they went casting that day, like scouting for talent, like what they were looking for, but they saw you and they found it. And then the fact that you booked your first gig, and then a few days later you're doing it, and then the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knew?
Yeah, you never like you said, you never know. Like you the Friends pilot, you just never know what's going to hit, even when it comes to like people and like different jobs, on set, behind or in front of the camera. You never know.
You really don't. You just gotta be
Yeah.
but you have to be willing and open to stuff, otherwise, it won't happen for sure.
Exactly, and I think you being like, "Hey, let me do the assistant part," seeing the other side of the industry, who knows if you took that out, maybe everything in your career would be the same, like work-wise, but I would probably guess there's so many little nuggets, things that maybe just through osmosis, like doing the editing, seeing how things are, cut, what they're looking for in casting, like when you did casting on that show, those little things probably slipped into your head, and it just worked when it came to the other side when you're going in for that audition.
Yeah. I think so for sure.
Man, Enya was great, man. So much fun. I love that she really appreciated the Black Scorpion show holding up, and I really hope that she goes on YouTube. I always think of that. Obviously, there's a lot of dark things on the internet out there, but if you're not going to Comic Cons, you're not seeing the appreciation for your work sometimes. So if you're ever down, there's some folks that I've interviewed and I've told them like, hey, look at this movie you don't think people think about or the show. Go look at the comments on YouTube, how much they love it and how important it is to them. I know it's silly because it's like, oh man, it's 30 minutes, 30-minute sitcom. But, things can give folks comfort. So it was, if Enya ever is feeling down, just look at Roger Corman Black Scorpion. Look at that on YouTube. The comments are on there, man. Yeah, very cool. And it still holds up. Please check that out. And your homework. The Klumps. More Klumps. We got more Klumps. Nutty Professor II. The Klumps. Can't wait to talk about it with Jamie. Huge Eddie fan. And this is still peak Eddie to me. I love this movie. So don't forget to review, rate, share our podcast. Follow us on all social media @sequels only. And don't forget to share our website, sequelsonly.com. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, guys.